You have been going to work for years, maybe 10 years, maybe 20. You show up on time. You do good work. You get your raises. And yet, financial freedom still feels exactly as far away as it did when you started. If that sounds familiar, you're not lazy and you're not bad with money. You are simply caught inside a system that was never designed to make you free. There is a difference between having a job and having a real path that builds wealth. A job is you trading hours for dollars. A wealth-building path is you building something that keeps paying you whether you show up or not. Most people never learn this difference, and it quietly costs them decades of their life. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why working harder at your job will never be enough and what you actually need to build instead. This single idea is about to change how you see every paycheck you have ever earned. The invisible ceiling on your income. Here is the uncomfortable truth about a paycheck. The moment you stop showing up, the money stops coming in. It does not matter if you are an entry-level employee or a senior executive earning a six-figure salary. You are still limited by the same unbreakable rule. You only have 24 hours in a day, and you can only sell so many of those hours before your body and your calendar simply run out of room. This is why even high earners often feel stuck. They assume the fix for feeling behind financially is to ask for a bigger raise or to grind through more overtime. But a raise does not remove the ceiling. It only moves the ceiling a little higher. You are still trading time for money, and time is the one resource you cannot manufacture more of. This is the fundamental limit that no amount of hustle at your job can ever fully solve. And once you truly see the ceiling, you can never unsee it again. Why you are more replaceable than you think. Most jobs are not as secure as they feel from the inside. Even skilled positions usually have other qualified people who could step into that role within weeks. Entry-level and hourly positions are especially exposed because the barrier to entry is low and the pool of available workers is large. That means no matter how many extra hours you put in, you rarely get a proportional jump in income because the market simply has other people willing to do the same job for the same pay. And here is the part nobody likes to admit. The people most vulnerable to this reality are usually the ones with only one source of income. If that single paycheck stops for any reason, a layoff, an injury, a company restructuring the bills, do not pause with it. Rent does not pause. The mortgage does not pause. Groceries do not get cheaper because your income did. This single point of failure is the quiet risk sitting underneath a paycheck-only lifestyle, and most people never notice it until it is far too late to fix quickly. When your entire financial life depends on one paycheck, something else happens that is even more dangerous than the income risk itself. Your thinking gets smaller. When every single day is about covering this month's bills and staying ahead of this month's expenses, there is very little mental space left over to think about where you want to be in 5 years or 10 years. You start reacting to your bank account instead of planning your future. Over time, this creates a comfort trap. The steady paycheck feels safe even when it is not actually building you anything long-term, so you become afraid to take any risk that might interrupt it. You turn down opportunities to learn a new skill or start something on the side because you are scared of losing the certainty of that next deposit. This is exactly how years pass by without any real financial progress, not because you did anything wrong, but because the system trained you to protect the cage instead of walking out of it. Keep watching, because the way out is simpler than you think. The one distinction that changes everything. So how do you actually break out of this pattern? It starts with understanding one distinction that most people were never taught in school. The difference between an asset and a liability. This sounds simple, but almost nobody applies it correctly to their own life. An asset is anything that puts money into your pocket without requiring your constant labor. A liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket, no matter how nice it looks or how proud it makes you feel. Your house is a perfect example of how confusing this gets for most people. If you live in it, it is a liability because it costs you money every single month through the mortgage, the taxes, and the maintenance. It only becomes an asset the moment it produces income for you. For example, if you rent out a portion of it. The habit of asking yourself, does this put money in my pocket or does this take money out of my pocket, is the exact filter wealthy people use before making a purchase. And it is the filter almost everyone else skips completely. The purchases that quietly keep you poor. Once you start using this filter, you will notice something uncomfortable. Many of the purchases that make you feel successful are actually the purchases keeping you stuck. The newer car, the bigger television, the upgraded phone every single year. None of these put a single dollar back into your pocket. They only take money out, and they often take even more out later through interest payments and maintenance costs. This does not mean you can never enjoy your money. It means every dollar deserves a job before it gets spent on something that only feels good for a moment. Wealthy families are not usually wealthy because they earn extraordinary incomes. They are wealthy because they consistently send their money toward assets first and treat lifestyle upgrades as something they earn only after their assets are already growing. This single habit shift is often the real difference between two people with the exact same paycheck ending up in two completely different financial lives 20 years later. Building your first real income streams. Once you understand that distinction, the next step is redirecting your savings toward things that actually produce income instead of things that just consume it. You do not need a fortune to begin. Dividend-paying stocks, index funds, treasury bonds, and even high-yield savings accounts and certificates of deposit are all low-barrier ways to start putting your money to work instead of letting it sit idle. You can begin with genuinely small amounts and grow from there over time. Beyond traditional investing, there are other paths too. You can rent out a spare room or unused equipment sitting in your garage. You can package your professional skills into an online course or a set of templates other people would gladly pay for. You can create content that earns you a share of advertising revenue over time. You can even partner with someone else's small business and share in the profits it generates. None of these paths require you to quit your job tomorrow. What they require is a decision to stop spending every dollar the moment it arrives and start assigning a portion of it a job of its own from now on. What financial freedom actually means. Let us be clear about what financial freedom actually is, because a lot of people picture it wrong. Financial freedom is not about being rich in some abstract sense. It is the specific point where the income generated by your assets is enough to cover your everyday living expenses without you having to trade any more of your time for it. That is the entire definition. Once your dividends, your rental income, your royalties, or your business profits cover your bills, you are free regardless of your job title or your salary. This is why two people earning the exact same income can be in completely different financial positions. One person spends everything and depends entirely on next month's paycheck. The other has been quietly redirecting a portion of every paycheck into income-producing assets for years. On paper, their income looks identical. In reality, one of them is building an exit and the other is standing still and does not even realize it. The slow climb that actually works here is something important. Nobody tells you about this process. It is genuinely slow at the beginning, and that is completely normal. In the first year or two, your side income streams might feel almost invisible. A few dollars here, a small dividend payment there. This is the exact point where most people quit, because it does not feel like it is working yet. But wealth building compounds quietly in the background long before it becomes visible on the surface. Your main job income is still the engine that funds this early stage, and that is completely fine. The goal is not to replace your job overnight. The goal is to consistently use a portion of your job income to build a second and then a third stream of income until eventually those streams grow large enough to stand on their own 2 feet. Every single dollar you bring in from this point forward deserves one simple question. Is this going to become an asset, or is this going to quietly become a liability? Instead, protecting what you build along the way. As your income streams start to grow, there is one more habit that separates people who keep their progress from people who lose it. Diversification. Never let your entire financial future depend on a single stock, a single side business, or a single client. Spread your assets across different types of investments so that a downturn in one area does not wipe out everything you have worked to build. Keep a small emergency cushion set aside in cash so that a surprise expense never forces you to sell an asset at the worst possible time. And keep learning. The people who stay financially free are the ones who never stop studying how money actually works. Because the tools and opportunities available today will keep evolving every single year. Protecting your progress is just as important as building it in the first place. And skipping this step is how too many people build wealth once, only to watch it slip away later. The mindset shift that separates the two paths. There is one more shift worth naming clearly because it explains why two people with the same starting point so often end up in completely different places. People who stay stuck tend to see their income as something to be spent as soon as it lands. People who build freedom tend to see their income as raw material waiting to be assigned a purpose. The first group asks, "What can I buy with this?" The second group asks, "What can this money produce for me next year and the year after that?" Neither group is smarter than the other. The difference is simply the question they have trained themselves to ask before the money disappears. You can start asking that second question today with whatever amount you have right now. It does not require a large salary. It only requires a decision that gets repeated often enough to become a habit. And habits repeated for years are exactly what quietly turn an ordinary paycheck into real long-term freedom. Why most people never start. If this all sounds simple, you might be wondering why so few people actually do it. The honest answer is that none of this feels urgent on any single day. Skipping one investment this month does not seem to cost you anything visible. But skip it for 5 years in a row, and the gap between where you are and where you could have been becomes enormous. There is no dramatic moment that forces most people into action. There is only a quiet accumulation of small decisions repeated so often that they eventually define an entire financial life. The people who break out of the paycheck cycle are rarely the ones with the highest income. They are simply the ones who decided the delay had gone on long enough and started with whatever they had on the very next payday, instead of waiting for some perfect future moment that never actually arrives. If you want to actually begin this shift, here is exactly where to start. Sit down this week and get honest about your income and your expenses, not to judge yourself, but simply to see clearly where your money is actually going. Once you can see it clearly, take whatever you are able to set aside each month and put it toward one low-barrier income-producing asset, whether that is a simple index fund, a high-yield account, or a small side skill. You can start monetizing immediately. Track it, learn from it, adjust it as you go. Do this consistently for the next few years, and you will look back and realize you were never actually trapped by your job. You were only trapped by not knowing there was another way to use your money. The paycheck got you started, but it was never supposed to be the finish line. And the sooner you start building beyond it, the sooner that finish line finally comes into view for good.